Push record.
I got you.
All right, thanks. Got it. We started.
Okay, good morning, everyone, to our Board of Trustee meeting. We're gonna just follow the agenda. Excuse me one second. I'll open up with prayer and then we'll have a song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. So Father, I just thank you for today. I thank you that this is a great day for us and a great day for Alabama A&M University. Father, I just thank you that you in all the deliberations that we do, and we'll move forward. And just thank you for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen. And with that, we'll go ahead and have the song. I think he's muted.
Start over. Yeah, he is. I'm sorry. Start over, Dr.
You're on
Carter.
mute, sweetie. You're on mute. Let's see, can you unmute?
Start over, please. He's unmuted.
Okay.
Oh,
Unmute.
okay, here we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat and not a weary feet, come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in thy path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Trustee Robertson, will you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Trustee Jerome Williams,
Here.
trustee Wayne Watts,
Present.
trustee Chris Robinson, present. Trustee Ginger Harper,
Present.
trustee Kevin Ball,
I like the ending. I like surprise like that.
trustee Kevin Ball. Okay. Not here at the time. Trustee Tiffany Johnson Cole,
Here.
trustee Richard Crunkleton, trustee Crunkleton, trustee Gainey, trustee Gainey,
Trustee Gainey is here. She's on the call.
okay, is she unmute or? Okay. Trustee Hackett.
Present. I'm sorry, Chris. Yeah.
Oh, glad to hear from you. Good morning. Trustee Hackett. Trustee Hackett.
Unmute yourself, Trustee Hackett. You can
Okay,
unmute.
present.
Thank you. Trustee Pickett.
Present.
Trustee Frank Williams.
Present.
And we also have trustee Jeanette Jones. I see, and trustee Austin Smith.
Present.
Trustee, let's see, trustee Ball, would trustee Ball join us? And trustee Crunkleton.
He's on his way.
Ooh, Crunkleton.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I haven't heard from Ball, so that's the only one that hasn't responded. Okay. Back to you, trustee Watts or trustee Williams, whoever's presiding.
Thank you, trustee. I appreciate that. And trustee Watts, thanks for starting the meeting for us. I really appreciate it. That was an awesome invocation by way of song to lift every voice and sing. That's a talented young man. We are so happy to have him as part of our Alabama A&M family. We have the agenda before us. Can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that the agenda that has been presented to us be approved.
Can I get a second?
Second. Williams, second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We'll now have a report by committee chair, trustee Watts of the Presidential Search Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. First of all, I would like to thank all the members of the search committee for their hard work and dedication. I would also like to thank Academic Search for their expertise in guiding us through this process. The two consultants that engaged us were retired presidents from HBCU, and one of them was also legal counsel and the past president of a majority institution. There were a total of 16 members on this search committee that represented faculty, staff, community members, students, alumni, and board of trustee members. The presidential search publicly launched on June the 16th, 2021, with the closing date of July 30th, 2021. For applications to receive full consideration by the search committee, you'll be pleased to know that the applicant pool was strong and included the following. 53% of total applicants, 53 total applicants, 17% of the applicants are current or former presidents or CEOs. 42% of the applicants are current or former vice presidents. The consultants met with the search committee to go over the measurement tool that we would use to evaluate all candidates for consistency. After all the questions were answered, we were given private access to the applicant files for evaluation. After reviewing all the applications, the search committee met to select a short list of candidates for a confidential Zoom interview. On August the 13th and 14th, the search committee interviewed each of the short list of candidates. After robust discussion, we selected a slate of 3 finalists, unranked, to be presented to the Board of Trustees for further consideration. Mr. Pro Tem, that'll complete our committee report.
Thank you, Trustee Watts, and I echo your sentiment of the hard work that the search committee did. Monumental task in going through all those names, resumes. It was not an easy process with a significant number of highly qualified candidates that we had, and to narrow it down to this 3, was a monumental task of the search committee. We can move shortly into our first candidate that we'll be interviewing or having discussion with. Is there any other information or comments or statements that anyone would like to make before we begin the interactive communication process with Dr. Burnett? Dr. Nash and Dr. Swoop, if we can, not yet in the waiting room. Okay.
Yeah.
As we went through this process, it's one of the most challenging things that I have encountered in my professional life, to be able to evaluate and consider and try to make the best decision for the university, looking at where we are now, looking at where we have been and where we're going, I hope to go in the future. And it depends on all those things in who you're selecting as your next president. Where are we in our life cycle of the universe? Where are we in our unfoldment of our master plan, our strategic plan, our reimagined plan? All those things are factors in the opinions given by the search firm, by the search committee. They weighed all these things carefully. They were debated vigorously. Everybody on that committee gave an opinion. I don't think anybody on that committee did not contribute an opinion as to the candidate or the process. The process that was used is a process that has been done many, many times by this company and probably by other search firms. This is the only presidential search I've been in, so I don't know the process or all the metrics used by other search firms. But the selection of the search firm was done by a committee of trustees. We looked at all the respondents to the RFPs, weighed them, discussed them. We had probably 2 to 3 different meetings as we eliminated the other ones down to this firm. And we were convinced that this was the firm to go forward with. And we began the process by hiring an outstanding secretary for the search committee. She's done an outstanding job. She's to be commended. Carol is a former employee of the university that now does outstanding work as an executive type secretary. And so she did the communications for us along the way to help keep us together and keep us informed. And then we outlined the whole schedule of events. We had hoped, really, when Dr. Hugeni announced back last fall that we could have completed this process by our June meeting. So that way you would not have to be called into session today. But we were not able to do what we had hoped to have done. But nevertheless, we moved forward with the process and began doing everything we knew to do based on the guidance that we received from our search consultants. And as a result, as Wayne has told you, that how the process unfolded, how the candidates were selected, and how we are where we are today. And today we will, hear from those candidates ourselves. Now, be mindful that they presented earlier this week to the faculty, staff, students, and alumni. So, and those presentations are available to you. They were sent to you. I hope you reviewed those so that as you interact with them, you will bring forth relevant questions or comments or statements so that we can get more information than was given earlier. So, it's up to you to have reviewed those. We tried to get all the information that we could to you so that you'll be fully informed. I've been available, and Trustee Watts has been available as well to answer any and all questions that we received about this process. So we hope that you're prepared to engage the candidates, get the information you need to make a good choice, an informed choice, a choice that would reflect on the deliberative process of this outstanding Board of Trustees. I think that we're at a good place, and I think that it's up to us to move the process forward. As soon as we can have Dr. Burnett available, we can go ahead and begin the process. When I'm made aware that she is ready to come on, I want to go ahead and turn it over to her. Y'all have heard me long enough. So if she's available, then Dr. Swoop and
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Nancy.
She's available.
Yes.
Okay. We'll bring her on then as soon as she is keyed up and ready to go.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, Dr. Burnett. It's so good to have you here. I'm delighted that you're able to join us this morning. If I may, I would ask members of our Board of Trustees to introduce themselves briefly so that you may know who they are and you can put a face with a name. Would you begin, Trustee Watts, and the rest of our board?
Sure. Trustee Wayne Watts, Search Committee Chair.
Trustee Harper.
Good morning, Trustee Harper, Senior Vice President for Iberia Bank Private Wealth Group, member of the Executive Committee.
Trustee Hackett.
Good morning, Trustee John Hackett, Jr., class of 1965 of Alabama A&M University, and very happy to be with you this morning and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Trustee Ball.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Ball. I am a A&M alum, class of 97 from District 1, also a member of the Executive Committee. Welcome, Dr. Burnett. Glad to see you this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Trustee Austin Smith.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. Nice to see you again. I'm Austin Smith, a senior civil engineering major, hailing from the capital city of Montgomery, Alabama, and I serve as the 2021-2022 Student Government Association Executive President.
sir.
Thank you. Trustee Robinson.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. Chris Robinson, Secretary to the Board. I work for the Army Material Command, and I represent the 5th Congressional District. Glad to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Trustee Pickett.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. I'm sure Dr. Cherie Pickett, and I represent the 2nd Congressional District. I work for the Alabama State Department of Education, and I'm a 99 alum of Alabama A&M.
Trustee Jones.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. I'm Jeanette Jones, President of the Faculty Senate at Alabama A&M. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Williams, Frank.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. Frank Williams, Managing Partner for RML, which is a automotive group across the country, local leader in Huntsville, Alabama.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson Cole.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett. Tiffany Johnson Cole. I'm an attorney practicing in Tuskegee, Alabama. I'm also a municipal court judge, and I represent the 3rd Congressional District.
Trustee Crumpington. You got to unmute, Richard.
So sorry. Good morning, Dr. Burnett. I'm the newest member of the Board of Trustees. I'm in the commercial real estate business, and we welcome you.
Thank you. Trustee Gainey.
Good morning, Dr. Burnett, Nichelle Gainey. I'm an alum, and I'm a member at large for the Board of Trustees.
Did I miss anyone? Thank you. Dr. Burnett, it's in your hands now.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I want to say nice to meet all of you. I was trying to follow the yellow squares to see who was speaking so I could put a face with the name. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm sad that I can't be on campus with you, but I fully, I don't understand, I overstand having to do this using this grand technology. So first of all, I'm really humbled to be here as a finalist for the presidency of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University. When preparing for these opportunities in the process to introduce myself to the campus community, I had an epiphany, which is captured in a quote that I read several years ago. It rang true then and it rings even truer in this moment. And that quote is from a philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, and it reads, "Life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward. We learn backward to live forward." My epiphany is that once again, I find myself having learned backwards in preparation for living forward. At this chapter in my life, I have believed that I've been prepared to serve as the 12th president at this time in Alabama A&M's history. So I've written out my remarks because I tend to get really wrapped up into my passion. And I know I only have 12 to 14 minutes to speak with you this morning. So if it looks like I'm reading, I am actually referring to my notes on my computer. So forgive me for that because these are my words, but I don't want to wane around while I'm speaking to you this morning. So my journey, I spent the first 18 years of my career as an engineer, deciding to follow my lifelong passion for education. I took a leap of faith. I took a tenure track faculty position at a large best practice community college in Tacoma, Washington, Pierce College, teaching information technology courses. Shortly after I joined Pierce College, I was asked to take the Chief Information Officer position, Dean of Information Technology. That was my transition into administration. A few years later, my husband, who was still on active duty in the Air Force at that time, decided that we would take one more assignment before retiring. So we were transferred and stationed in Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the research arm of the United States Air Force. That was the beginning of my 15-year journey at Central State University in Wilberforce. I joined CSU during a time of crises. After years of disinvestment by the state of Ohio, it had crested and the university was actually at the brink of closure. I am very proud of being part of a team that turned a corner and rebuilt a phenomenal institution that is thriving today. We tripled the enrollment, gained fiscal stability, reestablished the brand in Ohio, and postured the university to gain land grant status, and so much more. When the president decided to retire, I had been a member of his cabinet for the longest. I really wanted to be the next president of Central State. I love the institution so much, but despite having done every position over my long tenure, the president used to call me his pinch hitter, and I actually had to ask my husband what that meant. I didn't know if it was an insult or not, but after I figured it out, as his pinch hitter, I had served in every position except the provost and the chief fundraiser. But I lacked the credential, the terminal degree. I did not have a doctorate. So for the first time in my life, a position that I wanted, I was not qualified for. I was actually personally devastated. And after mourning that loss, I actually Googled, am I too old to get my doctorate? In the meantime, I was offered an interim position at Pierce College to return as president of one of its campuses. And that was a phenomenal full circle experience for me, because Pierce College had prepared me for Central, and then Central State had prepared me for Pierce College. I was given a sabbatical from Central State University to go back to Tacoma and serve as the interim president. I served while serving as president of Pierce College, I was still haunted by not having that credential. Washington State takes its community college system very seriously, and they have monthly meetings of all of the presidents. We'd go around the table to introduce ourselves, and everyone would be Dr. this, Dr. that, and I was always Mrs. Burnett. I had on a different color uniform, if you will. I had plenty of on-ground, in the trenches experiences, but not the degree. So I went back to my Googling the internet, am I too old to get my doctorate? And I decided to go with the half of the internet that said no. I stepped out on faith. I applied to 3 schools, got accepted into all, and I went back to school to get my doctorate. I returned to Central State to work as the dean of its West Campus, because I had been put on a sabbatical. So working my first year of study, I worked full time. And then I decided to go to school full time to really absorb myself into learning about the science of higher education administration at the University of Pennsylvania. It was hard to return to the classroom in my mid-50s, but it was an extraordinary experience. Right before my graduation from Penn, I was nominated for the presidency here at Houston-Tillotson University, but I did not want a small school. I knew I wanted an HBCU presidency, but I wanted to take my skills and my background to a large STEM school. A mentor of mine told me to go through the process to experience a presidential search. So I applied for the position to practice. I was practicing until I came on campus. I met the students, I learned about Austin, Texas, and then I really wanted the job. I have had a phenomenal journey here at Houston-Tillotson. When I got here, we had tremendous fiscal challenges. We had no branding in Austin. We sat in the shadows of the University of Texas at Austin, and we're suffering with the declining enrollment. The university is now in a very good place. We have increased our enrollment. We have stabilized our finances. We have grown our endowment. We have forged extraordinary corporate and philanthropic partnerships, and we have been embraced by Austin. We came through 2020 with no layoffs or furloughs and held steady with our enrollment, successfully lifting an all bricks and mortar institution to fully online for the full academic year. Our students are back now. We called it a reactivation of our campus because we never closed. And I didn't realize just how much I missed having my students on campus. So back to the epiphany of learning backwards and living forward. When I wanted the presidency of Central State and then a large university, I now realize in hindsight that I was not postured to take those positions. I still had some learning to do. My toolbox was missing 2 things: fundraising and building strong corporate and philanthropic relationships. Those are things I did not have to do in my work at Central. I now have those tools in my toolbox, and I'm ready for a dream no longer deferred. I have learned the science of fundraising because my institution is totally tuition dependent because we are a private, small liberal arts institution. I had tremendous experience at Central State in working with the state legislature, but here at Houston-Tillotson, I've had to build strong corporate and philanthropic relationships. So my passion for the HBCU mission has only intensified. Alabama A&M's history is one of the most fascinating in the entire sector. When Alabama A&M was founded in 1875, the purpose was to bring higher education within the reach of all people. The power and inspiration behind the Moral Act of 1890 was that it resourced resource a purpose, specifically as historically Black colleges. HBCUs are the backbone and the beacon of hope for a race of people, now more than ever in modern history. There are many moving parts and complexities in fulfilling that purpose. I do not have on my Pollyanna braids. This is a hard job, but I have dedicated my professional career to what I consider a noble purpose, and I have found my own form of activism in serving historically Black colleges. With the ever-changing landscape of higher education, there are mounting challenges to providing an excellent, affordable education. But our superpowers as HBCUs are persistence, intellect, grit, and commitment. Alabama A&M University is the epitome of this, with its fascinating history, its current state of affairs, its location, and its potential. In this day and age, you must have some form of post-secondary education to have a high-quality life with any opportunity with upward mobility, particularly for young Black people. Therefore, providing high quality education to all is a civil rights issue, I believe, of our time. Our institutions must stay on purpose, laser focused on our vision and our mission. From my extensive research about Alabama A&M and from my interviews with the various campus constituents, I garner and I surmise that the university has outsized prominence in Alabama and beyond. Its engaging, bright, and future-thinking students are thirsty for knowledge and engaged and excellent faculty with an enormous base of successful alumni. And the icing on the cake is that President Houdini has positioned the university with tremendous momentum on an upward trajectory. So I would see my role as the next president to join a team to continue to build upon that momentum, straightening the arc of that upward trajectory to lift the university to the next level. When I read the email from Dr. Williams about this part of the process to spend time with the board this morning for 12 to 14 minutes to introduce myself, it said that I should present my vision for Alabama A&M. The reason I struggle with that is because I don't know how to present my vision. The reason for that struggle is that a president's vision should always be in alignment with the vision and mission of the university as ratified by the campus. The president's job is to remove barriers to success, student success, success of the academic enterprise, etc. The board hires the president to actuate the university's vision and mission. That being said, my vision in alignment with my own personal core values and my career aspirations would be to stay true to the original intention of the Moral Acts of 1862 and 1890, to offer education to all citizens in the fields of agriculture, home economics, the mechanic arts, and the operative words in that definition are in other valuable professions. I would do that by imparting my learned skills, experiences, leadership style, imagination, and wisdom necessary to actualize that mission. There are three main pillars encapsulated in Alabama A&M's university's vision. The first is excellence in teaching globally competitive students in exceptional academic programs. You have to enhance support for excellent teaching and improve learning outcomes of our students. Our students struggle because oftentimes they come from low to moderate income families and sometimes ill-prepared high schools. Managing limited resources and securing funds for investing in excellence in teaching, those programs, recruitment, retention, et cetera, are essential. As state support potentially decreases and we become more state located as opposed to state supported, we become more dependent on tuition, and we must keep higher education affordable. We're challenged to find alternative revenue sources and to find ways to expand and leverage financial aid, do tuition and fee analysis, pursuing digital textbooks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Change the thinking of philanthropists to see that our university is not a charity, it is an investment. Moreover, finding administrative efficiencies, non-typical funding sources to contain costs and to renegotiate contracts with vendors, et cetera. There are all kinds of ways to grow your way to fiscal stability as opposed to cutting your way to fiscal stability. And all of this is to find efficiencies in the process, to refine and modernize how we do business. None of this is at the expense of academic programs. Instead, by operating more efficiently and working with legislative leaders for increased affordability, these resources are then used to reinvest in supporting academic programs, big ideas and research, financial aid, decreasing our students' debt, and reducing time to degree. Recruiting and retaining and graduating globally competitive students requires the use of data predictive analytics to increase our graduation rates and to decrease time to a degree while maintaining and enhancing the academic experience. There is a balance, and we must find that delicate balance to have attractive salaries for talented faculty and staff while being good stewards of our resources. The second pillar of the vision and mission is excellence in research. Within higher education for the past, I don't know, maybe 40 plus years, the Carnegie classification system has been the leading framework for describing institutional delivery in higher education. The Carnegie classifications that identify excellence in research are R1 and R2. Less than 15% of all HBCUs are R2 institutions, and none are classified as R1. I found that of the 61 colleges in Alabama, less than 5% of them are classified as R1 and R2. What an opportunity for Alabama A&M. There are clear metrics to becoming an R2 or Tier 1 institution. In a culture of assessment, being data-driven decision-making, a culture of being data-informed, data-conscious, with proper dashboarding, planning, and boldness, these are all metrics that the institution can make. We get in our own way to achieve these things. A few of these metrics are having a range of baccalaureate programs, being committed to graduate education through the doctoral level, prioritizing research, and having a certain number of doctoral degrees awarded each year, and receiving over, at the last I remember, it was $30 to $40 million in federal support for research. So Alabama A&M is well postured to dashboard these metrics and put in place the mechanisms to achieve R2 status and to consider whether it even wants to be an R1 status or not, given the emphasis on being a teaching institution. Research is the creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. That's what HBCUs have been doing for a century and a half. That the university is positioned in the hotbed for research. There is so much headroom to stretch ourselves into clean energy, environmental justice, food insecurity, the allied health professions, et cetera. The third and final pillar is an excellence in outreach. We must tell our story. Oftentimes our schools get in a space of not telling who we are. The story of our critical impact, forging the future of innovation. We must tell our significant contributions to the sciences, the arts, the humanities, allied health, agriculture, criminal justice, entrepreneurship, business, public health, the list goes on and on. What we do as a campus matters. Learning matters. We matter to our students, and they deserve the best. I call my students here at Houston Tillotson members of the genius generation, because our young people are geniuses. They just need to know that we believe in them more than they believe in themselves. We matter to their families, alums, Alabama residents, and beyond. Higher education's overarching mission is to empower individuals and communities, and universities are the engines of economic prosperity in their communities. As the university approaches its 150th anniversary in 2025. And as a sidebar, another exciting opportunity is that's a perfect opportunity to launch a bold capital campaign. The university must visualize the land grant role through the lens of a new era for not just the rest of the 21st century, but for the next 150 years. This demands an assessment of the challenges that our society face and how that marries with the university's strengths and interests. The university can protect its core while simultaneously stimulating progress. We can honor our deep, fascinating history and be a tremendous transformational possibilities for the future. Overall, I see Alabama A&M as being currently highly regarded for being best in class for teaching and learning as it is for research. R2 or R1 are a choice. And that's a choice that the entire campus community has to make. And finally, being best in class in STEM is a strong foundation on the path to becoming a top tier research institution. Yet, there is so much more potential and opportunity in so many other areas for the university. And I say that as an engineer. All of the desired metrics that we use to define a top-tier university are in alignment. A campus community that leans into excellence, that was very evident in my interviews. A campus located in Huntsville, a city of innovation and exploration for space, national defense, and more. Having land grant status, having supportive alumni, remarkable credential and credentialed, and extraordinary faculty, and sought after students for all types of employment opportunities. These are all building blocks, all parts of an equation to go to the next level. So my vision is to bring my leadership style of being firm, friendly, and fair, my ability to build strong, reciprocal, and sustainable partnerships and collaborations, and my ability to build communities of trust and transparency, and my passion for the mission to continue execution of the existing ratified strategic plan. Dr. Houdini's plateau is the next president's platform. We must always plan ahead on the cutting edge of innovation, stretching ourselves. From the platform, you must create a culture of assessment and continuous improvement in order to be an institution to meet the needs of our students, the state of Alabama, the nation, and beyond. For the next 150 years, remembering that our superpower as an HBCU is persistence. My reflections and preparation for this process has affirmed in my soul that I am the right fit to lead at this time. And I believe that the university and I are right for each other. So I thank you for this opportunity and my 12 to 14 minutes to introduce myself and to emphasize my interest in the position.
Thank you, Dr. Burnett. And let me first apologize for bringing you on before your scheduled time. It shows that you can step up when needed. And, and my most profound apologies. I had not looked at the agenda and was just assuming that you would be on after we did our opening business. Again, outstanding presentation on the spur of the moment without the opportunity to gather. And I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
We'll now have an interaction with members of the Board of Trustees. I have the first question, and we're gonna have a discussion where any member of the board at any time can follow up on a question or ask a question. But I got a most profound first question for you. Which is better, Coke or Pepsi? Which is better?
Coke. And that's because my campus has a vendor. They're a beverage provider. So everybody buy Coke.
Which is better, gold, digital, or US currency?
Gold.
Tell us why. And then the next trustee, please.
Because gold increases in value, and the US currency is more vulnerable, and digital is too unknown right now for me. So I just rather have that bar of gold.
Thank you, Doctor. Next trustee, please.
And I do want a bar of gold, not a gold ring or a gold necklace. I want a whole bar of gold.
Dr. Burnett, Frank Williams, Trustee Williams, very impressed. The historical HBCUs education has really not been an issue. We have done a remarkable job over the last 100 years. As far as culture and what you see that can transform the students getting access to the next level of the US and worldly, what do you think a president can do in the 21st century? I got your remarks, but what do you think about the culture has kind of kept us from getting all that we deserve? And kind of give me a little elaboration on how you think you could scale that for the students going forward.
So I think we, as HBCUs, we are a microcosm of society, and sometimes we get in our own way. There is such a thing as post-traumatic slave disorder. And I believe that HBCUs in some way can suffer from that because we have been consistently told that we are less than as a people, and in often cases as HBCUs. We hear it in our ethos all the time. There's a problem with financial aid. We don't treat our students right. We don't have high quality academics. And most of that, if not all, is extremely inaccurate. And students lean into the pride or culture or morale of the campus. Here on my own campus, when I first got here, the students were wearing University of Texas gear. as opposed to Houston-Tillotson University gear, because they were seeing that as something for them to aspire to. So I banned all UT gear on campus. The only other gear students could wear is Ohio State. That's my own alma mater. You can wear Ohio State or Houston-Tillotson gear. And the reason for that is for them to build a sense of pride. You're a Ram. We're the HT Rams. And I not only showed that in my administration, but in my own personal conversations with students, to continue to tell them that you have to be proud to be at an HBCU. In fact, I told my graduates, we did our combined 2020 and 2021 classes in one commencement at the end of last month. And I told them, not only are they college graduates now, they're HBCU graduates. There's a magic that has happened in their lives. And you have to put that in everything, in your literature. You have to deliver it in your instruction. You have to deliver it in student affairs, student development. Everything that you do on the campus has to instill a pride, because I think as HBCUs, we are now coming back into our own. I studied Wilberforce University for my dissertation because I used to drive by. Wilberforce is the first African-American owned and operated HBCU. And I drove past Wilberforce every day going to work at Central State, and I watched it decline. So I was fascinated by how an institution that was once the monarch of higher education, let alone being an HBCU, where Du Bois taught, what could happen. So I called it Wilberforce University, the squandered treasure. And there are a lot of things that happen, challenges with the board, challenges with the leadership, not bringing on high quality faculty, not reinvesting in your academic programs, not looking forward, not staying cutting edge, resting on your laurels as an HBCU, because now we're competing with other HBCUs and other predominantly or majority institutions. So we can no longer, we're not the only anymore. So once we get through that, and I'll entertain conversations when I'm often interviewed a lot, and people ask me, why do we still need HBCUs? Because we're a post-racial society. And that's funny to me. We're not a post-racial society, and we need HBCUs. No one's asking, why do we need Catholic institutions? Or why do we need more than one Ivy League? We need them because they're necessary. So we have to get out of our own way in order for us to promote ourselves.
Just one follow-up question, and then I think I'll pass it on. Very impressed with what you've done with the community in terms of industry coming in the realm of your experience into the institution. I've not seen as much or many presidents able to get community engaged and industry driven to collaborate them to give HBCUs access, which they want our students. How would you explain you did that? And what would you say is going to be a way that you can do that for A&M? Because I see Tesla, I see all those things in your background with a connection, which I think are huge. The other thing is what does your engineer background give you when it comes to industry driven with students as well? Because we're a big engineer background, but I'm not sure we have capitalized on that.
So I'd like to take the second one first. My being an engineer has informed my entire career. Engineering teaches you how to be a critical thinker and to make decisions using data. It's morphed into many things now, information technology, information systems, et cetera. So I have the lived experience of what students are going through. I'm first generation, I'm from an urban city, I'm from a public school system. I have that lived experience, and I know what it took for me to be successful. My alma mater created a little mini HBCU as an Alcorn State graduate as the leader of minority engineering. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I didn't know I was first generation until I got into higher education. So that my lived experiences help inform my decision making. And STEM are very important. And one thing I've also learned is these high-tech firms and companies, they also need other majors. They need English majors. They need history majors. They need criminal justice majors. They need other majors in order for them to sustain themselves. And they're really looking for the well-rounded, good citizen. And that's what HBCUs do. The first part of your question, when I first got to Austin, I fell in the Atlanta airport rushing, and I hurt myself really bad. I had been on the job 2 months. And I am the first female of the combined institution. So I was determined not to miss work and not to come to campus. So I took the Uber back and forth to work. And of my first 10 Uber rides, 8 of the Uber drivers did not even know the university was here. And that sent me on a rant. I could not understand how a city like Austin could not embrace its historically Black college. It's a jewel. So that became my elevator speech everywhere. I was very particular on what boards I joined. I was asked to be on a lot of boards. Live was probably Freudian, to be on the board because I live at the university, to be on boards, and I chose them very carefully. For example, I chose the Austin Community Foundation Board. It's the largest fundraising philanthropic community foundation in Central Texas, because I wanted to understand philanthropy and how and why people give. I joined Leadership Austin. I eventually became the board chair of Leadership Austin. And I joined an organization called Austin Area Research Organization, which are all C-suite executives. They're a think tank for Austin. And I did that so that I could meet the movers and the shakers in the city. And I just became this spokesperson for the mission of the university. And my students speak for themselves. We made a rule that we only take paid internships. If you want to hire our students, you have to pay them. I formed an advisory council. We got a grant called the Career Pathways Initiative. So we formed an advisory council of businesses in the area. And I'm really proud to say now we are sought after. Tesla is a great example. When Tesla first decided to build its Gigafactory, they were going to Prairie View as a source for engineers, mathematicians, and computer scientists. And one of my contacts at the chamber told them, you know, we have a historically Black college in Austin, and they came to meet with me. And in their literature, they said that the most engaging and the best meeting that they had in Austin was with the leadership at Houston-Tillis University. I told everybody in Austin that. So they are now underwriting and partnering with us for our mechanical engineering program. And the way is that through relationships. I built relationships and encouraged my senior leadership to get involved in the community. They have to sit on a board. They have to be engaged in the community, because if they don't, you know, I'm not a one-woman show. I have to have a team behind me. And if they don't, we can't get our voices everywhere. And when it comes to the relationship with Apple, Apple's second largest plant is here in Austin, Texas, outside of California. So I met with one of the leaders of that facility and worked my way all the way up to the person under Tim Cook. I was told not to approach Apple with a Black male teachers initiative. I should do it called New Generation Educators, but I wanted to be transparent. My goal is to recruit, retain more Black men to be teachers. So we have the Apple Pre-Ed Scholars now. I have 18 scholars on full scholarships. They get Apple, they go to Apple training for how to be a certified Apple teacher, et cetera, et cetera. And that was through relationships.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Trustee Gainey. I'm sorry, Dr. Burnett, but my video, I'm having some problems, and I hope to have it corrected after this interview. You mentioned your beautiful state of Austin, Texas. Love that city. And in your relationship with Tim Cook, who is also a board member with me in the Olympics for 2028. So my question is, looking at the demographics, you have done your research on the state of Alabama, you know, and Tim Cook has not given generously to the state of Alabama, as you are aware. So in this position, can you tell me something that's encouraging about higher education innovation that you're aware of in the state of Alabama? Why is it innovative? And what value does it bring to the university? And how would you incorporate that if selected as president of Alabama A&M?
So I have a very quick, funny, but engaging Tim Cook story. Tim Cook was here in Austin to roll out an initiative they have with Austin Community College. And I was offended because I was like, why Austin Community College and why not Houston-Tillotson? That was part of why, what I took to my contact there in Austin. So fast forward, this is the power of the alumni base. When Apple did a story about Houston-Tillotson's African-American Male Teacher Initiative in their global publication. And one of our alums who works for Apple in California sent Tim Cook an email saying, thank you for supporting my alma mater. And Tim Cook tweeted about our initiative. That 240 character tweet took that program to another level. We could not have paid for that kind of published publication. And that's back to the power of the alumni base, because that alum, I do not know that alum personally. And I was told this story by someone because I thought Tim Cook's tweet was done by someone else and they were just promoting it. But that was just a really good story about how partnerships and collaborations can really help. So when it comes to innovation in the state of Alabama, actually, Austin has a very ugly history when it comes to race as well. In 1928, Austin made it was legal that all Black people were relocated into 78702, which is the zip code where my university is. And if you were Black, you could not get your utilities turned on if you did not live in 78702. So I didn't know that history when I first got here. And I thought gentrification was a positive thing because it was an economic engine. But after I learned about the history, which is a part of why the university felt was in that kind of state of sitting in the shadows of the University of Texas, it was chiseling off that and using that history in a very positive way. So I see that evolution happening in Alabama as well, particularly in Huntsville, because Austin had to come to grips with its own racial history and for it to attract these organizations. Because when they come into Austin, they're looking to fill their pipeline because they have their own personal conscience of wanting to make sure they have a diverse workforce. So it's our goal, our role is to prepare our graduates to fill those pipelines, while addition promoting the institution as an investment, not a charity. I can't say that enough, to be a research engine in places like Alabama. We are, despite how these austere times, we are turning as a nation. And we have to be cutting edge and innovative for us to be on the forefront of that, because our students are in demand, but they have to be prepared when they get there so that they're not the last ones in the door, or that they have a very competitive opportunity because they're prepared. So Austin is not much different. The state of Texas it's very hard to navigate here in Texas. Even I mandate masks on my campus, even though I'm in a state where you're not supposed to mandate masks. We have a real high campaign to get all of our students vaccinated. You have to learn how to navigate through the environment that you're in, one, and then two, continuing to keep that beacon of hope out there for our students and their families, because we are their space of opportunity. And the university then has to be high quality through reinvestment so that we are the innovative engine, irrespective of the fact that, or because of and irrespective of the fact that we're a historically Black college. I really believe that we can stand true to who we are. We do not have to wane from we can protect the core of who we are while simultaneously making a space for innovation and progress.
Okay, very good. Also, just two questions. I would be remiss, Dr. Burnett, if I didn't ask this. How important is a successful athletic program to you?
I think any affiliation with the university needs to be successful. If it's the athletics program, it's a fine and performing arts program, if it's a 501c3, has to be successful. The choice that the institution has to make is it at the risk of the academic enterprise? Mm-hmm. If it's not at the risk of the academic enterprise, just like Greek life. If Greek life hazing is prominent, it's at the risk of the academic enterprise. So, but Greek life is very important to the life of the institution. So there's a balance, and that's where your firm and fair leadership has to come into place. And sometimes you have to make very hard decisions. This is probably the military wife coming out of me, but oftentimes it's about the Navy, not the sailors. And even though we want all the sailors to be happy and content, sometimes all the sailors aren't a fit. So different programs that are auxiliary programs, they are auxiliary programs because they are potential revenue generators for the institution, not at the expense of the academic enterprise, but to support the academic enterprise and the student's experience.
I think that's my question as a military brat, Dr. Burnett. We all know that, you know, sports and accelerated programs are very important to the institution on a recruitment basis standpoint. So I just very impressed with your bio and your body of work. So those were some of the questions I wanted to have for you today. So Chairman, I'm turn it over to the next trustee.
Good morning.
Dr. Burnett, this is Tiffany Johnson Cole. You mentioned very hard decisions. And one of the questions that I had was, leaders are sometimes called to make difficult, unpopular decisions. Given the current climate in social media, sometimes leaders find themselves in a position to choose between making a decision that will preserve their likability or making one that will adhere to their responsibility. Can you please tell us tell us of a time where you had to make an unpopular decision and include in your response the outcome and how you were able to navigate bringing people along with you?
So 3 of the hardest decisions that I have had to make in my professional career have been in the last 2 years. The first one was sending my students home permanently for the rest of the term at spring break. Many of my students did not have access to the internet. The internet is not a utility. I learned that out very quickly. They did not have computers, etc. That was a tough decision for me. This is their home away from home. But I had to follow my moral compass and to follow the science. The second hard decision was postponing commencement. Commencement is a rite of passage for my students, and that was a very unpopular decision, the second unpopular decision. And the third one was opening the campus up for the Black Lives Matter rally. I am seen as a social activist here in the community, social justice activist here in the community. I chaired the mayor's task force on institutional racism and systemic inequities, advocating for my students and my university 3 years ago. After there was an unfortunate incident here, 4 years ago, I'm sorry, after there was an unfortunate incident here in Austin involving one of my graduates, and then another one involving a young African-American male. So my heart was telling me I should open the campus up, but we had just stopped all campus activities. But my head was telling me, you shouldn't. So I talked to my security folks and I said, we're going to mandate all the people to wear masks and we're going to open the campus up for the Black Lives Matter rally. And we did it. And 20,000 people were on campus. It was definitely a moment in Austin's history. It was where it turned into a movement as opposed to a social media moment. So all 3 of those are very complicated, unpopular decisions with different audiences. But my style is to, in particular, when we decided to stay fully online for the 2020-2021 academic year, we garnered a cross-campus committee, and we went through 16 different financial scenarios. Because when I closed the residence halls, we immediately lost $1.6 million. And this is pre-CARES Act money. This was before we even knew we would get CARES Act money. So we had to reassess our budget and to renegotiate contracts, do a lot of creative things to maintain the university, to keep it whole. So getting the campus engaged and getting everyone to come along with an unpopular decision was by giving them the data and the information. And if I'm making decisions and everybody loves me, then I'm not doing something right. I've come to see that as a leader. You have to make a decision for the majority of the people. Even my students, I tell them, there are over 1,000 of you. I cannot keep 1,000 people happy, but I can make decisions that I believe with the concert of my board, my administrative council, my cabinet, my faculty, my staff, in concert with them, we will make the best decision. And if it's a bad decision, we go back and revisit it and we learn from it and we make another decision. So 3 of the hard, unpopular decisions I've had to make have been in the last 2 years for sure, as a result of COVID.
Thank you. And I've got just 2 more. Your remarks actually kind of segued into my other 2 questions. In one of your sessions, you stated that crisis doesn't make you a leader, but reveals the kind of leader you are. So I'm curious as to what kind of leader this COVID-19 has revealed to you, or if it's brought out something that new, or a leadership style that you weren't kind of sure was there. The second one is, you mentioned social justice, and those are issues that are really, social justice is something that's extremely dear to my heart. So can you tell us what role that you believe the university and you as president play as it relates to social justice issues?
So what I learned about myself is I'm a lot more courageous than I thought. I've been in a male-dominated field my whole life. So I've always been the only woman, the only Black woman, or oftentimes the only Black. So I've had to be courageous and get through not having this imposter syndrome. So I thought I was pretty courageous and fearless and grounded in who I am. But the pandemic was extremely stressful for me as a president. Even now, with the reactivation, we've got testing going on because 95% of my faculty and staff are fully vaccinated. I'm really proud about that, giving in Texas. So we're aiming to get as many students vaccinated as possible. So there's a lot of pressure going on around us to get this environment, this culture of, we're calling it ourselves the safe and healthy Rams, and telling students that they have to have their own personal responsibility, make their choices. And if you're not vaccinated, you have to be tested. So I've learned that I can be courageous and have this off button, because I'm a vessel. And I've learned that I am a vessel in this job. And that really also segues to me finding my own form of activism as the president of a historically Black college. When we held the march, the reason that the rally was on our campus was because I have been sharing that the university is an honest broker in hard conversations. We are a beacon. That's what higher education is, think tanks. So when it comes to race relations, we represent that. We also represent that education is the great equalizer. So we're an honest broker. The Texas Tribune, which is a very popular publication here in Texas, they had a panel on are we post-racial society or not, about race relations in Texas. And they came here. We also use our campus as a venue for a revenue source. So if you come Texas Tribune and you want to have something on our campus, you're going to pay a revenue fee for that, because that's one of our alternative revenue sources. So they held their panel, and they have very popular panels across the state. And the editor said to me that it sold out within an hour, and he called it the HT factor, meaning that people had a comfort zone to go to that panel on a historically Black college out of curiosity, out of wanting to see, out of wanting to know. We've had people come on our campus for the very first time. So they have these stereotypes about the institution, but then when they come to our campus and actually engage with our students, they're not going to eat you. This whole image that people have of what's happening on the campus is dismantled. And I think that's important. And that's the role that we serve in the community. So we have become this beacon of hope. Like, for example, I'm often asked to weigh in on different very complicated conversations in Austin, not only about race. And it's because people have begun to value our opinions and our thoughts, and wanting us to be weighing in on it because seeing the true beauty of diversity of thought. And we also had to dispel this myth that we're not diverse, because we are diverse. We're very diverse. We're diverse in race, we're diverse in gender, we're diverse in who you love, your orientation, your religious background or affiliation or lack thereof, where you come from. We're extremely diverse campus, and there's such power in our diversity that is poured into our students, and therefore the community. We are a jewel in Austin's crown.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is John Hackett, Trustee John Hackett. Dr. Burnett, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, sir. How are you today?
You relaxed now?
I am.
Thank you.
When I came on suddenly, I hope I didn't look too crazy because I was not expecting to come on, but I got it together.
Okay. Thank you for the interest you are showing in Alabama A&M University, currently serving as the president of HBCU. You understand the importance of a strong financial picture. Alabama A&M has been many years struggling financially due to the many issues, one being inadequate funding from the state of Alabama. However, over the years, with increased enrollment, increased state funding, federal grants, capital increase, capital fundraising, and increased alumni giving, and other funding sources, the university is now financially sovereign. What steps would you take to make certain the university remain financially sovereign?
So thank you for that question. This is my area of expertise, given my experience at Central and then coming here. And you itemize all the things that we have to keep doing. None of those things stop. You have to continue with continuous improvement in your efficiencies. You have to continue to look at your processes. There's always space to become more efficient, always. If someone tells you that they can't streamline a process anymore, they're not either using the next level of technology, or they're not really thinking hard about it. So it's continuing in all of those things and finding alternative revenue streams. We cannot put the cost of managing the institution on the backs of our students because you reach a price point and then you start sliding down a hill you do not want to get on. So it's that leveraging of your financial aid dollars, being sure that your processes stay tight. When it comes to return to Title IV and how you manage financial aid, because the federal and state government is your biggest funder, so to speak. So you have to make sure you stay in consistent alignment with those rules and regulations for the state, at the state and the federal level. Stay in close connection, living with the legislature, because we are a state institution. So that's an important component, and emphasizing that we're an investment in the future of the state of Alabama, building those sustainable and reciprocal partnerships. What makes partnerships sustainable is making them reciprocal. Our partners get something from the institution, which is in most terms research, because we have undergraduate research, and our students, employing our students, and the expertise of our faculty in some cases of our partnerships. And that's what makes them reciprocal. Capital campaign, 150-year celebration is a prime time to raise, to launch and raise and execute a successful capital campaign. People ride on the enthusiasm of the institution, and people want to invest in a good news story. So it's not depending on just one avenue of revenues. We're looking for all avenues of revenues. We cannot be in this position of barely surviving. So once you get to thriving, you cannot rest. All of those moving parts have to continue to stay in place on a consistent basis. And you have to put very qualified people and innovative people who are very bold and wanting to continue to continuous improvement in all of the things that they're doing. And then finally, when it comes to financial stability, growing enrollment, you reach you cap out. So you have to determine as an institution, what is the goal? If the goal is to have 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 students, how do we incrementally grow to that so we don't outsize ourselves? If there's a balance, you have to maintain the level of faculty that you need. You have to maintain the level of staff that you need. You have to maintain good salaries, and you have to grow your enrollment through retention. So, and you have to get your graduation rates up by offering all kinds of, that's what I was inferring when I talked about reinvesting in the academic enterprise through intrusive advising, through tutoring, and getting students in this space to ask for help. Did they know that that is a superpower? It's a weakness not to ask for help. So create that ethos and put your scholars out front, your leaders out front, so that they set the tone. So when you you have to grow your enrollment by retaining your students. And the first thing that people ask is about your graduation and your retention rates. So that's a goal in order to increase your graduation rates and you grow your enrollment through retaining your students, not always bringing in this large freshman class and then they dwindle down substantially by the time they're seniors. You're not being an effective academic enterprise. So you're not really being fiscally good stewards of your resources, because you invest a lot to recruit a student. So you have to retain them so you get a return on that investment. And there is a science to that in maintaining that. It's a very complex equation, because HBCUs have a bad business model. You have the majority of your population cannot afford your product. That's just not a good business model. So we have to make up for that by being creative. And we've been doing it for a very long time. And we get a bad rap about it, but people don't really realize what we do with limited resources. And there is a balance. I've experienced it at Central State, and then I've experienced it here at Houston-Tillotson. You can have a high quality product with limited resources. It depends on how you invest those resources and how you manage them.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Dr. Burnett.
Good morning, Dr. Jones.
Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University is a complex, comprehensive land grant institution with a trifold mission of teaching, research, and public service through our cooperative extension unit. Can you please describe for us the experiences you have had in each of these areas that will help you as you provide the executive leadership needed to propel this university forward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I'll start with the service, the service through the extension. Historically Black colleges in particular are like community colleges for their community. We have the beauty of being a university and simultaneously at the heart and core of who we are, serving our community. And I don't want us to get away from that as historically Black colleges, particularly in the institution that I have the opportunity to lead. So I have a servant heart, and that comes out in my leadership. And what I would emphasize is that the definition of, with land grant is other opportunity, other degrees and other learning opportunities. So we have to put this new light on what it means to be a land grant institution, given the current needs of our society and the communities that we serve. So it doesn't always mean that we keep doing the same thing over and over again, because we've always been the centers of, we being historically Black colleges, particularly those in the South, the centers for intellect, creativity, and solutions for the most pressing issues facing society. So that's what the funding of a land grant institution is to be that bastion of stirring that intellect and then imparting that knowledge to the communities. If it's addressing food injustices or food deserts or environmental justice, clean energy, I could go on and on and on, whatever the needs of that community are. So that's the service part. The teaching part, I got into higher education because I love learning. And it's about the learning, and teaching is a mechanism for the learning. I teach right now at the University of Texas at Austin. I teach in their doctoral program because my provost, despite my 6 years, I keep trying to say, can I teach a seminar, a class, anything? I never get a class. So I had to go to a sister institution because I wanted to keep teaching. And I get engaged in all kinds of student activities because I think as much learning goes on as outside the classroom as inside the classroom on this campus. Every interaction that you have with the staff person, irrespective of who it is a learning opportunity for our students to build good, how to handle their business, their finances, how to act at a certain event or how not to act at a certain event. So that's all about the learning and I'm about the teaching, I'm sorry. And that's very important to me is teaching. It's a passion, it's a personal passion of mine. So I want to make sure that my institution has all the tools that it needs to be an effective teaching institution. And then finally with research, being a research 1 or research 2 institution at university is a choice that an institution has to make. The difference between R1 and R2, as I understand it, is the R1 institutions have primarily their faculty do research, and then the teaching is done by either adjuncts or graduate assistants, et cetera. Where in our R2 is the faculty do research, but it maintains its teaching focus. So the institution has to make a decision what it wants to be. I am a researcher, I'm a historian. I love history. I think there's a lot of power in researching something to impart more information, more knowledge. I mean, we had Mae Jemison as our commencement speaker this last year. I wanted our students to see someone who was in this cutting edge exploration of next phase. So we invited Mae Jemison to come. And she said something very powerful. She talked about how there used to be a time when we would never think we would fly in an airplane. Like it was just never going to happen. And now we do it just happenstance because of research, because of investments in science. And then she said, and now we think we'll never be in space. And she talked about the fact that our people, particularly Black people, have to be at the table in this exploration of space exploration. She says it's not just for billionaires. It's going to be for all people if we're at the table. And so that research is exciting to me. And that's not just in space exploration, but in all things. We have a memorandum of understanding, an agreement with Army Futures Command here because they're headquartered here in Austin. And it's to use our faculty expertise. So, people think, well, why would a small private Black college be engaged with the Army Futures Command? Because they need my faculty. They need their expertise. They need their lived experiences. They do. Now they know. And we can't let them forget. We have to continue to keep pushing forward by going out there and showing out in a positive way. And that's the research part of it for me, how in my leadership, how that is to me exciting.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response.
Dr. Burnett,
Good.
who's next?
I was gonna ask a question real quick, Trustee Robinson.
Oh, Austin, I know it's not real quick. Go ahead.
You know how I get down. So good morning, Dr. Burnett. My question, and honestly, you were right, Trustee Robinson, this is a long one. Within your cover letter, you said your mantra is think students, then decide. How do you bring students into your decision-making process? And how do you adapt to a new generation of college students who dream bigger and work harder?
Dream bigger and work harder. Oh, that's a capital campaign right there. I mean, see, students.
I need to put a copyright on that one.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. I have a meal with a student every week, either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Some students I have a standing breakfast with them every other week, depending on my schedule and their schedule, but I have a meal with a student. The reason I do that, I did it at Central, I do it here, is because that's how I keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening with the students. I think my staff sometimes regret me going into the CAF as a student scholar because I learned a lot about trust but verify leadership, where you trust that something is happening, but it's not. So you verify, like if I see students coming back at 8:15 into the cafeteria, that means the 8 o'clock class got canceled. And why did that happen? So you see that when you're out and about on the campus. So think students, think students and then decide has become a mantra of mine. I got that at Pierce College because it is so large. So you tend to just be an administrator and not really realize that you're making decisions that affect lives. So you tend to make decisions for your own comfort zone. Like if we do our billing process, it's comfortable for us to wait till the new fiscal year starts and then send bills out 2 weeks before classes. But if I have the mean income of my students is $30,000 a year, or their estimated family contribution is 0, you can't send that family a bill saying, hey, we package you financial aid, you owe the university $7,000 in 2 weeks. So that's comfortable for the business office, but that's not comfortable for our student population. So that's an example, just one example of thinking students and then deciding. And in mapping out our processes, we can't map them out from, you do a mapping process from your perspective, you have to do the mapping process from the student's perspective. We're bouncing them to financial aid, the business office, they don't know what services they're entitled to. New student orientation is, we want to get it in the 9 to 5 office hours. We want to open up the residence halls, only during the week, not the weekend. You can't run an operation like that. You can't run your university like that. You have to map your processes from the student's perspective. So that's my think students and decide. And you had a second part of your question, Austin.
Yes,
excuse me.
It's all right. You can call me Austin.
No, I don't want to say Austin. I want to say Mr. President.
The second part of my question is, how do you adapt to a new generation of college students who dream bigger and work harder?
Okay, right. So I love my students. I don't like them all the time, but I love my own children. I don't like my own children all the time. I love my husband, but I don't like him all the time. So I say that in all honesty. I spend a lot of time at student events. When I'm not traveling to raise money for the university, I keep in my calendar, certain student events are blocked off. And the reason I do that is so that I can understand their needs, their vernacular, and I enjoy it. For example, I went to our welcome week on the yard where all the Greeks get out and show all the freshmen who you want to be. And I got it after the last performance. I left, it was dark, and I left to go home, and I got in my truck and I was checking my text messages, so I did not leave right away. So as I drove off campus, I had my window down and the music had changed from the radio version to the non-radio version. So I called my student affairs person, who was the adult there left in charge, and he picked up the phone. I know, Dr. Burnett, I know, I'm headed to the DJ right now. My students, they know the rules and they're learning. And the way I stay engaged with them is to spend time with them. And I learn from their fearlessness. I mean, this generation of students is fearless. And we try to damp them down, like with Black Lives Matter, in the beginning of it, it's uncomfortable, but they really are, our future is in very good hands with this generation of students. I mean, I say that because I'm around young people all the time. They just have to believe in themselves. And we, as a society, our responsibility is to make them believe in themselves. And this generation has had trauma their entire lives. Wars and viruses and attacks on our nation, the insurrection, I mean, it continues, and they're still strong. So our role as a university is to continue to pour into them so that they're equipped to go out and be trailblazers and change makers. The civil rights movement itself, which changed our nation, was really all HBCU graduates. All the hidden figures were HBCU graduates. Nothing is different now, nothing, as far as our responsibility to put these graduates out to be change makers and trailblazers.
And I have one final question. Environmental justice and climate change are hot button topics for this younger generation. how have you demonstrated environmental activism at Houston-Tillotson, and how do you view the role of the president of a university in this fight against climate change?
So we have a student group called Green is the New Black. We just rolled out an environmental justice major. It was environmental science. We went through a substantive change with SACS, and now we have an environmental justice major. This is a personal passion project for me. I have 3 passion projects on campus. One is my African-American Male Teacher Initiative. The second is the onslaught of an engineering program. And the third is environmental justice. We infuse social justice in everything that we do. My role is to forge partnerships and remove barriers to student success. So we were approached by the Texas Park and Wildlife organization because they wanted to diversify their workforce. So that's a good hook to start with, but we wanted it to be more than that. So we leaned into our undergraduate research, and I shared this example in one of the interview sessions. My students chose to trap urban coyotes because of all the gentrification that's happening around the campus. That was one project. And then the second project we forged with St. David's, which is a large hospital system here in Austin. And now we have the St. David's Scholars, almost $500,000 a year, the St. David's Scholars, and they study environmental impact, because this zip code is one of the, your lifespan is determined by your zip code. So students are researching why that is, what are the elements that pour all into that, which is environmental justice, because of many things, the lack of good food, the lack of good healthcare, the lack of good transportation. And one of the boards that I've chosen to be on is the Austin Transit Partnership. Austin is now bringing in a large metro rail system. We don't have a metro system in Austin. Through that experience, I've really learned a lot about environment and how people just didn't even have good access to transportation, which is back to the quality of life. So my role is forging those partnerships and supporting those programs. And we have an annual justice forum here on our campus, environmental justice forum on our campus. It's happening next month. And we're actually having an expert come out of the Atlanta area who his expertise is reparations when it comes to food injustices and insecurity. So it's exposing, and we don't tell students what to think, but we tell them what to think about. That is the mission of higher education. And environmental justice is something we definitely as people need to think about, because our people are the ones that are most devastated in natural disasters. Flint is an example of how a community was definitely not treated equitably. And it's because people with lived experiences from that community are not in the decision-making processes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burnett.
Dr. Burnett?
Sir.
Oh, Chris, go ahead. Sorry.
Dr. Burnett, good morning again. And it is so refreshing to hear you. And I'm a big energy person and vibe person. So you give off a good vibe. You appear to be, and this is me personally talking. I love the energy. I love the interaction with the students. And so, the leadership in Huntsville, and I'm a part of Leadership Huntsville. We went to Austin to study, on how the city was growing, and Huntsville is kind of mimicking some of the things that they're doing. Also, my affiliation with my job with AMC, a 4-star command, I love that you're doing a lot of things with some people I know at Army Futures Command. So we have AMC here that we need to tap into. So I love that piece too. 2 questions. The first one would be your various jobs, and I like that your background in working in different areas on campus and different institutions. How was that? And you might have touched on this. You studied Alabama A&M. Hopefully you did, and you probably identified gaps. So the first question is, how will this prepare you to take AAMU to the next level? Just real briefly. In looking at what you prepared, your experience in looking at Alabama A&M, how do we go to the next level?
So it's all those moving parts, getting them all together in synchronization and building a community of trust and a community of transparency. And that is what I've been responsible for, not just here at Houston-Tillotson, but also at Central State. I was at Central State for almost 15 years. Okay. And I started as a director of IT with a free download. The email was a free download off the internet. And my desk was a hand-me-down from Wright-Patterson. The university had just really been just not disinvested in from the state. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I continue to have passion for the mission. So my learned experiences, my life experiences, in addition to my professional experiences, I really strongly believe make me a fit for this position. And even my tenure in Austin, I didn't know a lot about Austin when I first came here. And I owe my son is a journalist. He is a assistant managing editor of Education Week. And he has been my researcher for this process. I owe him probably like a fee because he has found every single, article. And he even sent to me the application that the university put together for its application for being a national on the National Historical Registry. Right. And that, because he knows what a history person I am. And that excited me because it just shows the prominence there in Alabama to become, for the campus, to become a National Historical Site. So all that, that research has it's informed me to say that I have each of those experiences to be able to continue to, and I really want to emphasize that irrespective of who is selected as the president, has to continue to build on the work from this current president. You always leave the party when you're having fun. That's one of my mentors told me. Our schools, sometimes they transition in turmoil, and that's not good for the institution. So it's best for the institution to continue that momentum. It's like being on a trip, and all of a sudden people start turning the wrong way and it becomes uncomfortable. Just stay on the trip. You're going in the right direction. So I just feel strongly that my experiences have postured me to be able to bring my skills and talents. And I'm still learning and evolving. If I was to say that I have all the answers, that's not, because higher education is evolving. The landscape is consistently changing in higher education. So I'm with the National Association of International Colleges and Universities. I'm on the board for the College of Higher Education Accreditation, because the accreditation process is crucial. We just finished our 10-year decennial reaffirmation. We had no findings. I'm proud of that. We go before the SACs in December. And you have to infuse that culture of assessment in your campus now. It's back to Mr. Hackett's question about fiscal stability. You can't rest because SACs watches you to make sure you're doing all of those things consistently. So I've just had that experience. And then in department, that's another thing that impresses me about the university is the department accreditations. Yeah. A lot of schools don't do that. And that's looking for the faculty wanting their particular curriculum, their division, their individual, their part of the silo to be accredited, even above and beyond the university's accreditation.
Let me dig a little bit deeper. So your first 100 days, we are riding on the elevator. First day, okay, but I'm riding up with you. First 100 days, we're on the elevator. Give me your 3 priorities for Alabama A&M. We don't have a lot of flights to go to now.
So first of all, I'm excited to be on the elevator because the building that I sit in is 100 years old and it doesn't have an elevator. So I'd be excited to be on an elevator, first of all. So my 3 things would be student analytics, and by that I mean increasing our graduation, our retention rates. The second is investments in academic programs, the appropriate academic programs. And the third one is the branding of the institution within Huntsville and beyond. Those would be my 3 priorities. Now, I will say that my first 100 days will be full of listening sessions. Because one thing I learned here at Houston-Tillotson, I learned a lot at Central, and I wanted to take what I learned at Central. And when I realized the financial situation that the university was in. And that's because I had been the VP of Admin and Finance, so I knew the questions to ask. Because sometimes the president is at a disadvantage, and if you don't understand the business side of your university, you could quickly get in trouble. I know some of my colleagues have had that experience. So I came here with, my expertise in the finance operations of the university that I had learned and mastered at Central. And all of a sudden my strategies weren't working. That thing that says culture eats strategy for breakfast, that is real.
It is.
So I came to the university, we're going to do this and this and this. And then I'm in Texas, I'm not in Ohio. I'm in the country of Texas. So I had to learn the culture of Texas and the culture of Houston-Tillotson. So my first 90 days of that 100 would be with listening sessions so that I could really learn the university and the campus culture and the people, so that I can be an effective member of the team, because the president leads the team, but you're still a member of the team. Sometimes you have to be out front, sometimes you have to be pushing from behind, sometimes you have to be pulling from the middle, and you learn what role you play by listening.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Burnett. This is Trustee Pickett. The questions that everyone has asked kind of leads into mine. You said earlier that it can sometimes it was hard to navigate Texas. And if you are offered this position, it's going to be even harder to navigate Alabama. So what is your plan? And I do have a couple of questions. What would be your plan of action to navigate this whole new state that has those powerhouses like Auburn and Alabama?
So University of Texas at Austin is right across the highway from here. And they're on the west side of Austin is divided by the highway, Interstate 35. And it was polarized. All the Blacks lived on the east side of the city, all the whites lived on the, the minute I found out that Houston-Tillotson University was older than the University of Texas at Austin, it became my talking point. Because here is a city that has an institution that's 145, at that time it's 141 years old, and disrespected by the institution unfairly. So that became my talking point. And then I met with the president of the University of Texas at Austin, who is a friend of mine now. He's actually at Emory now. We started at the same time. And I had a very candid conversation with him about the fact that Houston-Tillotson is a peer institution. We don't do what they do. They don't do what we do. We have different missions. We have different objectives, but we complement each other. And prior to my coming here, everything that the university did with the University of Texas was through their Division of Diversity and Community Engagement, which is not respecting us as a university. We're not their affirmative action checkbox. So we had a very candid conversation about that. And he used his pulpit, if you will. He's an engineer, I'm an engineer. So that's back to relationships, building relationships, and recognizing that we are peers. So he used his leverage for them to open up to partnering with Houston-Tillotson, because that's what it takes. Because you have to say, you are a flagship institution. You may be the medallion institution for the state, but we are a medallion institution in our own right, and recognize that. And you do that. I mean, very, I don't want to say politically correct, very diplomatically. That's what I'm looking for. You have to be very diplomatic, and it's like water running over the jagged rock. Eventually your message gets there. And if you can't, you find out it's not getting there in that avenue, you regroup and go through another avenue. So it's being at the table. I'm sure that the states have a conglomeration of presidents. Same thing as Central State. I used to represent my president at our monthly meetings, oftentimes when he would be unable to make it. It's getting to know those other presidents and standing your ground. So it's not, you know, it was not easy in the beginning, but it is easy now. I'm very involved in this Central Texas, not just Austin, but in Central Texas. So I'm not, and also I'm a graduate of a medallion school, so I'm not intimidated by that. That was another thing. I'm an Ohio State graduate. It's you know, one of the largest schools in the nation, and it has its moles and warts. I mean, I'm still involved in my alma mater, and we're still struggling on how to get Black women in engineering, but I stay focused on that. So I'm not intimidated by that, and I also have to stay true to my own roots. And the sidebar on a personal note, my husband is from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and he just wants to live back in that area of the country. So if I don't get this position, I may be in a little bit of trouble. I feel like I didn't do something right. So it's on a personal level, it's important for me. I really believe it's fertile ground. Just like it has been here in Austin with the University of Texas.
And I like another statement you made. You said it's not a charity, but an investment working with our HBCUs. And that was one of the questions. I said, most people speak of donors, but those are sometimes just one-time gifts. And we don't want to do one-time gifts. We want to have partnerships. And with those partnerships, you're looking at almost sustainable resources, because if you just have a one-time gift, you know, I really can't, though we thank you for them, don't get me wrong, we thank you for the one-time gifts, but we want to create partnerships. And I've gotten calls of, and this question kind of leads into another question, but I've gotten calls about people wanting to work with the university and they may not have gotten a call back, or no follow-up. So how are you, and that leads into customer service. So sometimes you may call, there may be a voicemail that's full and all of those type things. How would you help to alleviate some of those issues that community people have with wanting to partner with the university?
So you must be looking at my life through the other lens, because that was a challenge that we've had, and there are two approaches to that. One is, when we start with a partnership, we say we are not human resourced at the level we need to be, because we're operating efficiently. So therefore, we don't have 500 people in the advancement office. So you have to be very candid about that. And these are the ways to get in touch with the particular people in the university. And if you can't get someone, then you have to contact my office, because my office phone will always be answered. So that's first up front. And we're looking to you to be an investor to help us build capacity, because part of institutional racism is you can't get ahead because you can't get ahead. I shared that with there's a gentleman that's building a new baseball stadium, a foundation, and he asked to come and meet with me. So when he came to meet with me, I took him on a tour of the campus. Now this foundation is building a baseball stadium, brand new baseball stadium. Brand new stadium. So I took him on a tour of the campus. It was during COVID, so he could not meet my students. So, because that's usually, I take my guests to lunch in the cafeteria so that they can see the student body and feel the energy of the campus. So I was not able to do that with him, but we had a fantastic meeting. And then at the end, he asked me for a copy of our master plan. And we have a master plan, the university did, but it's not an extravagant master plan because it costs almost $500,000 to do a master plan. I went through a master planning process with Central, and we used our limited resource to create a plan. So then he said, well, you need a much more robust plan than this. And I said, well, that's what I'm looking to you for, to invest in us, because I can't get ahead because you want me to be ahead. Like, you want me to have this robust plan for you to invest in us to execute a robust plan. And we don't have the funding to do a robust plan. So I'm looking for you for an investment. So it's that kind of catch-22 where you have to be very candid with those, you know, in a very diplomatic way. I have to emphasize that in your messaging. And then the other part of that is customer service has to be a priority on your campus. So you can't just expect your potential investors, your alumni, your parents and family to act a certain way and to forgive you. That's not okay. So we have to still continue to strive. And the other part of that is fixing our processes and training our people on customer service. Sometimes I have a philosophy: train, transfer, terminate. Sometimes you have a person in a position who is not the right fit for that position. So you can train them. And if they're not trainable in that position, then they have to be potentially transferred to another position that's a better fit for them. And if that's not a fit, then they have to depart from the institution. And we have to stay firm to that. I say this a lot on my campus. We are a family. The students call us the family because we're the Rams. So we are a family. That is a strength, but it's also a weakness, because nobody wants to fire their uncle or, discipline your cousin, because you're a family. So that becomes a weakness. And you have to you have to move through embracing that as a strength and not let it become a weakness and in the way of you providing good customer service and responding back to the community. You have to have metrics and lean into the fact that we are going to serve the population and serve our publics.
Thank you. I call them our first impression specialists. That's what I call it.
Yes, they're on the, exactly.
On the front line. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Burnett, Trustee Harper, want to say that I'm very impressed with your warmth, your passion. I love the journey that you shared. I think it's totally relatable for our students. I love your military background. That bodes well for Huntsville. I'm sure you did your research on that. At one time, Trustee Robinson could probably opine, but I think we had the most retired generals of any other city. So hopefully, your husband has done that research as well, and has an affinity for Huntsville. But my question is twofold. And you've talked a little bit about it in parts, but one, how do you plan to collaborate and leverage your network to bring in sponsorships, partnerships, opportunities from industry? So that would be the first question. And two, what do you feel is the impact you could have on Alabama A&M?
So my contacts, because I have built relationships, I want to maintain, not to the detriment of Houston-Tillotson at all. I love Houston-Tillotson, so not to the detriment of Houston-Tillotson, but as an add-on. I had dinner with one of my contacts the other evening who had been told that I was in the final for this. And she said to me, that doesn't mean that we stop working together. And that made my heart smile, because there's just another opportunity at another great institution with a similar vision, and a similar mission, but on a grander, larger scale, by nature of the fact that it's a larger state school with a different, and HBCUs are not monolithic. We're not all the same. So I would bring that energy and building new contacts and expanding the institution's Rolodex, to use that old term. Austin probably doesn't even really remember or know what a Rolodex is, but to be able to, to expand those contacts and those relationships. So I would bring that with me to the university. And the second part of your question was, Trustee Harper?
Oh, sorry about that. The second part of the question was more around, how you're going to, integrate and become a fabric of the community. And
okay. Similar to what I've done here, if not the same technique, which worked well. And that's for me to engage myself in the community. I lived in East Austin which is where the university is. I do not have there is no president's home. I chose to live in East Austin. I was encouraged to move further west out in a different area, but I wanted to live, work, and play near my university. I think that's important. You understand the community that the university is in, and it's the community that serves your students, frankly. So I would use that same strategy. I actually got very engaged in my own organizations. I'm a member of the Links Incorporated. I became engaged in that. That has been a very rewarding experience for me outside of the institution. I am a foodie. So I love to try all the different restaurants in the community because it gets you to learn the culture of the university, which is also learning the culture that the university, that the students are submerged in. And then board membership, I think, is super important because you get to become seen as a thought leader in the community. Leadership Austin was really a springboard for me to be a part of an organization that's building leaders. That was important to me. And Austin Community Foundation, I've met some phenomenal people here in Austin. People who will, people come into your lives for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. I believe my season here is coming to a close. Leave the party while you're having fun, so to speak. And I have aspirations to do something on a grander scale within my own major and and bringing that to the table as well, because I am an engineer. I mean, the other half of if you remember when I said I Googled, am I too old to get my doctorate? The other half of the internet told me to go back and be an engineer and just stop trying to do this higher education thing. But I hindsight 2020, I made the right, I went with the right half of the internet. So I bring all that with me to the position.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, if no one else has a question, I'll ask another. Dr. Burnett, can you share with us anything you'd like to about sports and student athletes and how we integrate athletics with academics and so forth?
Yes, thank you for that. Because I meant to, one of the other questions, I meant to add this, and I'm trying to be succinct to get as much in as I possibly can before our time runs out. One of the unpopular decisions I made was not allowing my athletes to play during COVID. And I took a lot of heat about that. But COVID was raging in Texas at that time. And eventually the conference stopped playing many of the games anyway because of COVID outbreaks. But I had decided, along with some of my other brother presidents in the conference, but we were the first to say we are not going to play, and that was unpopular, but that was for the safety of my athletes. And my athletic director and my vice president, chief operating officer were just instrumental in continuing to keep the students engaged, reminding them that they're student athletes. And the operative word in that is student. So keeping them engaged. And we did a lot of things with care packages specific to different populations of the campus to include the athletes, et cetera, et cetera. Athletics is a key component of recruitment. It's also a key component of my diversity and race on our campus. We're 25% Hispanic on campus. We have a very, my volleyball team had won the conference championship. So they were the returning champions. So I saw them we had President's opening convocation yesterday, and I saw them together, but they still love me. They might have been a little angry at me, but they get it. And I think the majority of them came to recognize, because as things evolved and the virus got worse and worse and worse, in hindsight, following the science was a good thing. So soccer and baseball are very popular sports here, and basketball, clearly we have men's and women's basketball. So it's integral to our recruitment process, what's called the the Rio Grande Valley, the Lower Valley, we recruit a lot of athletes out of that area, but they are reminded that they're student athletes first. And then also, the other component is the fine and performing arts. I shared with us becoming an all Steinway school. That's another very important component of student recruitment and retention, is those students that are in the band or in the choir, or those who are, on performance-based scholarships. So that also is a component of student life and of recruitment and retention. And then, having a winning team. I'm super competitive, like super competitive. So I want to win, but not at the expense of the academic enterprise. I want, I'll be the president out there. I'm the president out there, cheering along when I can, but not at the expense. You are a student first.
Trustee Williams, I just want to compliment that statement on student athletes. Most folks are ignoring the data that says the poverty rate for athletics for minority kids that are trying to just get to the prize are forgetting that most of the 90% of the ones that are not getting to the prize are falling by the wayside, deeper into poverty, that are going through institutions. So I appreciate you having a focus that balances that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're winding down beyond our time. In fact, we've gone beyond it. But I do have a question I'd like to present. Among the singer-songwriting poets, who is your favorite, and how do they compare with Tupac?
So why would you ask this question at the end? I am a huge Mr. and Mrs. Carter fan. And I don't like the language in Jay-Z's music, but I love their entrepreneurial spirit and their courage, and they're using their pulpit to become moguls, if you will. So the lyrics, and this is another reason why I call my students a genius generation, because you try to rap, have that kind of lyrics coming out of you in that rhythmic way, that's a sign of genius. And we tend to put a negative light on it, but we have to harness it and make it positive. So my lyricist, my song and lyrics, as you say, Trustee Williams, would be, I am a huge fan of Beyonce and Jay-Z. Now, you have me end my presidential presentation with the fact that I'm sharing that I am a huge fan of Mr. and Mrs. Carter, but that would be my, I would share very quickly, I do speeches and I always do lyrics in my speeches. So I use Wake Up Everybody a lot from Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, because if you read the lyrics, they're super powerful to get a message across. So when you quote those lyrics, the crowd gets in it with you because everybody remembers those lyrics when you start singing them. So I would also add in the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you going beyond the allotted time. I don't know whether any of the trustees has a burning desire, if you're willing to address that. If you do, trustees, speak up now. If not, then we'll end this session.
Dr. Burnett, this is Richard Crumpleton, and born in Akron, Ohio. And when my Down syndrome son was born, we became very familiar with Nysonger Center at Ohio State. So one of his favorite expressions is, I was just double checking sure, Dad. And I've got one, it's a short answer, I think, to this question, but I'm simply double checking sure. We have about 66 initiatives that are under our reimagining program. And I have to assume that there's nothing on that list that you are not an advocate of.
Nothing.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's always good to see a fellow Buckeye. Well,
thank you.
I want to.
Go ahead, Dr. Burnett. Give your closing statement, please.
I just want to thank you all for your time and commitment to the institution. I have a very good board here at Houston-Tillotson University, so I understand and know the value of the Board of Trustees. You clearly are good stewards, a good governance of the institution. So I'm honored to have been one of the finalists, and irrespective of your decision, Alabama A&M is truly postured and has a lot of potential to become just a best-in-class institution that happens to be a historically Black college. I think that's really important to put in the ethos system of the university. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one quick question?
Yes, Trustee Robinson.
Dr. Burnett, if you're selected, your first board meeting, and you have the opportunity to plan the menu, what are we having for lunch?
Well, if it's on Wednesday, it'll be Chicken Wednesday. And if it's on Friday, it'll be Fish Friday. So hopefully it'll be on one of those 2 days.
Great answer.
Thank you, everybody.
I thought you were going to trip me up too. Thank you, everyone.
We'll get ready for the next session at 10:30.